Welcome to the ERP Seal podcast. My name is Tim Rodman. We are live today on Friday, June 19th, 2026, and this is episode number 176. You can find related links for the episode today at the link on your screen, which is erpseal.com/episode 176. And Rahul and I just realized that it's a holiday today. I think these days for me, any kind of holiday doesn't register as much because it seems like another day. So sorry about that. But here we are recording live on Friday, June 19th. We got Rahul to talk about buying and selling online. So Rahul, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tim. And I thought you're going to have this as episode 1 of ERP Seal. And I was going to say that, I'm privileged to be the first one on your ERP Seal episode.
You're actually the second one. Last week was the first official guest.
Yes.
But yeah, I decided just to keep the same episode numbering. It's really not different, just a new name. But yeah, you're not alone in thinking that the episode numbers would have reset.
Yeah. It would be cool to say that, I was one of the first ones here.
Well, you can claim that if you'd like. Yeah, if you're definitely one of the first ones here.
Yeah.
Just ignore the number.
Yep.
So hey, thanks for coming on. And I had some notes here about what we had thought to talk about. But before we get into the buying and selling online, e-commerce, and all that stuff, maybe you could just give us a brief origin story. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? And how'd you get into the world of mid-market ERP?
Long story, Tim. I think I was born in India. Went to schooling, in a lot of different schools. I think 11 different schools. I think not because I was kicked out of these schools. My father was in a job that required him to do a lot of travel, and I was traveling along with him across the country. And did my bachelor's in India, and then moved to the US to do my master's, and worked in Chicago for a few years. My last official job I did was with Morgan Stanley, Discover Card at that time, and then started Kinsium and moved back to India after that. So yeah, I'm now based in India, but I do keep traveling quite often to the States. Primarily around conferences, I think, where I think almost every conference I see you. And yeah, so that's in terms of getting into e-commerce. My background was not in e-commerce when I was actually working. And when we started Kinsium in 2006, so we just celebrated our 20th anniversary last week. And
wow, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think somebody was telling me that less than 5% of the companies survived the first 10 years. So I guess we made it, right? So, and so we were doing a lot of programming activities, everything under the sun. And, some advisors said that you need to specialize in something. And we looked at all the projects that we were doing, and we thought, which out of all the projects that we were working on, which ones were, in the same common vertical. And it ended up being e-commerce, and we were doing Adobe Commerce at that time. And so we said, okay, let's specialize in e-commerce. That's why we got in, and then we met with Acumatica, Ali Jani, back in 2013, through actually one of the early wars of Acumatica. And and before we were focusing on ERP-led commerce. That's the story.
So before you got into the ERP side, I don't remember this actually. Were you doing websites and just like kind of the front end part of things?
Correct. We were doing a lot of Magento websites. I think back in the day it used to be Variant, then it was Magento, then it became, of course, it was acquired by Adobe, and now it's Adobe Commerce. So we were doing a lot of Magento work. I think almost everybody in the e-commerce space was involved with Magento in some way or form, because it was the hottest thing at that time in the early 2010s.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I've had Ted. I'll have to put a link to the previous episode. Can't remember off the top of my head. I've had Ted Stenstrom from Kinsium on before to talk about just commerce in general, but maybe we could revisit that conversation from your perspective. Just talk to me about like, what is commerce in general, and then what is e-commerce? Like my simple brain likes explanations. Is commerce just when money changes hands? Is it that simple, or what is?
In its traditional sense, yes, but the way we look at it is commerce is any time any transaction is happening, right? So typically within the context, obviously there's money that changes hands in many different ways. There is, we are not talking about government to consumer or other things. Primarily, it's D2C, B2B, and so on. But commerce typically is we look at it as there is traditional retail, right? So the retail commerce, and then you have e-commerce. So from our perspective, we look at both retail commerce and e-commerce as just commerce, right? So it could be your traditional point of sale, or e-commerce could be your B2B or D2C and so on.
Okay, so it is that simple for you. It's I'm making a transaction in the physical world with a credit card, tapping my phone, tapping your forehead, whatever people do these days physically to pay. And then there's transacting in the digital world where it's just me and my computer.
Absolutely, and I thought you'll be using the word surfaces, because that's the latest term. Yes, technically the head is the surface too, but yes, that's a new term in the AI world. It's AI surfaces, right? So yes.
AI surfaces. Okay, yeah. Well, the AI surfaces is more of a digital thing, isn't it? Where you have agents buying and selling things now.
Yeah. I mean, your website is the surface, your mobile phone is the surface. Anything that you use to transact, that's your AI, or interact with AI. That's your AI surface. So that's how they, that's the simplest way of looking at it.
I do want to circle back on that, but I think I'm going to wait. I'm going to do my best to. I'll use an ERP seal analogy. Wade in a little slowly before we get into the deeper waters here on AI.
All right.
But that's, specifically, I wanted to dive into a little more about what you're working on specifically, this OmnifiCX. It sounded interesting to me. You gave a little demo at the Acumatica Summit back in January, several months ago, and it sounded really interesting. Maybe we just launch right into that. What are you working on these days? And then we'll kind of just sort of back into general commerce lessons in general.
So basic, I think it all it comes together in a certain way, right? So when we talk about commerce, if you look at a commerce technology stack for any business that's doing anything, any sort of meaningful commerce, right? And you will always have either a warehouse management system, you'll have an accounting system, or a combination of both in an ERP. You may have a CRM and all these different systems. And traditionally, I look at this as 5 levels, right? So I will start with the first one, not at level 0. I would say -1. -1 is fragmented commerce, right? So you have data, spread over all these different systems, right? Your inventory data is present in your WMS, your ERP, your website, your point of sale. There is I would say it's a version of truth that lives everywhere, right? So all systems are maintaining inventory data, all systems are maintaining product data, customer data, and so on, and they're all fragmented, right? And that's the chaos that a lot of folks live in, and that's when you're basically doing bad jobs and so on. And of course, thankfully, a lot of businesses have migrated from fragmented commerce to integrated commerce, right, or unified commerce. And that's what Kinsey has been focusing on for the last, I would say, decade or so. It's about building unified commerce, where you are bringing all this data together. You have like modern sync tools, whether it's point-to-point connections, iPaaS platforms, whatever it is that you're using. So that is what I call as integrated or unified commerce. And that sounds great, but it still doesn't change the problem, right? At the end of the day, integrated commerce is simply doing the same thing. It is still syncing the data. It is still getting all the data together, but it's doing it at a faster pace, or maybe what we call as near real time, right? So there's no such thing as a real time truly, right? Because let's take an example of pricing, right? Pricing logic traditionally lives in your ERP, especially if you're talking about a B2B or something like that. But so you also have some version of that logic sitting in your e-commerce. In an ideal world, you want to, at the time of checkout, you want to check with your WMS to see if inventory is available. At the time of checkout, you want to check with your ERP to make sure that the pricing logic is accurate. But you don't do that because that makes everything slow. You can't really have all these calls coming from your website to your ERP and WMS and so on. So in other words, you go from fragmented commerce. When you say unified commerce, you're syncing data, but you're still, living with the same problem. You're just doing things at a little bit of a faster pace and some automation. So what we have been focusing on is, instead of connecting systems, if you look at things from a data perspective, and if you basically have a governed data store somewhere, right? Now, this is the next stage beyond unified commerce. We call it governed commerce, where at the end of the day, you have a centralized data store. Now, whether that is spread over multiple systems, whether that's in some sort of a data lake in the center, whatever it is, having a unified record of data across your entire enterprise, right, in a canonical format, in a specific standardized format, and then all the systems working off of that same centralized data. That's governed commerce. So we started by focusing on that and said, for 15 years, I think all the time that you've known me, I've built point-to-point integrations. We built a lot of these apps that connected e-commerce to ERPs and so on. But the concept behind governed commerce is that what if I can bring, instead of simply exchanging data or syncing data from one system to another system, as part of the sync process, I also standardize the data and put it in a governed data store, right? So I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit more. If you look at any organization, there'll be multiple systems, right? Every organization will have at least like 3 to 5 systems at a minimum. And let's take product data. Your product data, if you have an ERP, may originate in the ERP, but it does not, your entire product data doesn't get created in the ERP. Your product enrichment may happen in a PIM or in the e-commerce or somewhere else.
PIM. So I don't remember what that stands for. Do you remember what PIM stands for?
PIM stands for Product Information Management System.
All right, got it. Thank you.
These are solutions like Akeneo, Salsify, PIMcore, lots of them are available out there, right? So basically, it allows you to store all of your product catalog in a nice way, along with I'll throw another acronym out there, a DAM, Digital Asset Management, right? Thrown, which means all of your images, videos, brochures, all of those things, right? So you have all these different systems that are producing data for the same entity, which is a product entity, right? So if you really look at it, there are multiple systems. They're all producing a portion of data for every entity, whether it's a customer data. Customer data may reside in your CRM or your ERP or your e-commerce, right? So like that. So what if we basically, have a centralized data store, and every producer system pushes the data that it produces to this centralized data store. So in which case, let's say if you take a product data, the ERP pushes in the product SKU, the name, the description, pricing, and so on. And then all the meta tags, the images, and everything come from the PIM into the same data store, right? So like that, all these systems are feeding into this to build your unified record for the product. Same thing.
Can I ask, when you're saying data, is it from a very high level standpoint, basically just come down to two things? It's your product data, which is the list of stuff that you sell and all the stuff about it, and then your customer data. Is it basically those two like lists?
There's a little more. Yeah, there's a little more. I'll also introduce the concept of golden records in commerce, right? So golden records stands for, all of your key pieces of information entities. So it could be customers in case of a B2C, companies in case of a B2B, product information, right? Your inventory data and your order information, right? So these are typically your golden records, right? So this.
Okay, so 4, the big 4, the actual, what do you have on hand, the orders that are coming in. So there's like 2 master level records, customers and products, and then there's transactional records, inventory on hand related to products, and orders related to customers. Okay.
And then, of course, you can add in shipments, returns, and a whole bunch of other things as well related to those, right? So that the idea is that if every system that is producing that portion of the data for that entity can push it into a centralized store, now you're building a unique canonical record that is populated by all these systems that interact with it, right? So now that you have governed data, now all of your systems can talk to this data store rather than talking to each other and creating a whole bunch of cross connections across the board. So that's the vision that we started with. And
I also want to push you to identify canonical. You used that word multiple times. So what do you mean by canonical?
Canonical is, think of it as like a standardized version of data, right? So it's a version that everybody agrees on, right?
Which is important for things like Google SEO. And now it's important for AI agents. It's important for when machines are reading your website, not just humans. Is that a good way to describe it?
Absolutely. And there are protocols. So the idea is that, think of it this way: if you can standardize the data within your organization in a particular format, it need not be a format that everybody else agrees with. It's your own format. Now you can basically translate that data into whatever format, whatever system needs it in. Right? So the idea is that everybody is, when an ERP is talking about it, everybody is talking about a standardized data. I mean, think of it like your phone directory within your organization that everybody knows how to look up our yellow pages and so on, right?
A little bit like EDI, would you say, like a similar concept in that you're coming up with a common EDI is electronic data interchange, I think. It's a way that companies will exchange orders with each other, usually bigger companies, but a similar idea, right? That if you have a sort of common translation layer, then you can communicate easier between systems. Okay.
That's correct. I mean, it's exactly like EDA, but EDA is a little more rigid, very structured and so on. And here you have a little more flexibility in terms of how you want to define your data.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that was our idea, that we said, if we have a centralized data store, now you're talking about data architecture rather than connecting systems and system architecture, right? So what we've done for the last decade is all system architecture. Now I'm saying, let's bring the data together. And once we bring the data together, we are solving a completely different problem now, right? So when we went through fragmented commerce and integrated commerce, unified commerce, all these things, you're still dealing with all these sync problems every day, right? Which means, sometimes the data comes in, it doesn't go into the consumer system effectively, it gets stuck, somebody's solving the sync problems and so on. But if you really move to a unified data store, then you're not solving those same problems, the sync problems, because if you look at a traditional point-to-point connector or an iPaaS platform, which gives you a little more elegant way to connect, you're still you're still dealing with the same problem, the sync problems. But if you have unified data, you're now solving a different problem. You've graduated to the next level, which is your data is unified, and the systems are now not talking to each other. Let's say if the ERP creates a product, it pushes it into the data store, and then it forgets about who is actually consuming the data. The ERP doesn't care. A point of sale system, an e-commerce system can read from the same data and do their work, right? So it again eliminates this constant syncs and integrations between all these tools. And I think we created this chaos ourselves when we started talking about, I'm going to introduce another term here, composable commerce, right? So everybody over the last 5+ years has been talking about composable commerce, right? You look at any commerce provider, they say, oh yeah, we support composable commerce. All it simply means is best system for the best job. I can use a different search engine, I can use a different promotions engine, recommendations engine, and then bring all of them together and compose your commerce together by stitching all these systems together. It sounds great in theory, right? Best man for the job. But the problem is that the more systems you add, the more integrations you're doing, and the more fragile your architecture becomes. So this is changing it differently in terms of, anyways. So I can talk about this for days.
Well, I want to dig into that a little bit. So it sounds like you're saying you think with the idea of centralizing things into a central hub makes the integrations less fragile. And I'm missing that. So let's say, talk to me about the difference between if I have a Shopify website, and if I'm going to push the order that the customer makes on the Shopify website directly into my ERP system, that's what you're saying as being the older way to do it. But what's the difference between that and having Shopify push the order into a centralized data store? Isn't it still an integration point? What's the difference?
That's a great question. Everything is still an integration, but let me tell you where it changes things. So let us say you have your ERP and you're talking about Shopify. Shopify is pushing your data into the ERP. And the ERP is also now integrated with the WMS. It is also integrated with the shipping system. It's, there could be multiple other systems. So technically, when you look at your ERP, in the commerce world, there is no such thing as a simple, ERP implementation. So the ERP, it's more than the ERP implementation. It is all these integrations that you're working with.
Wait,
And
are
now
you sure? I thought ERP implementations, like you'd spin them up in a day. ERP implementations.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah. By the way, that's you should actually do a podcast on that. There's a lot of changes happening in that space as well. I know of at least 2 companies that are doing some really cool things with AI. And it's still not a day, but anyways,
I'm with you.
Really cool.
Campfire and some others. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think Campfire, Doen, Flow, a few interesting things. Anyways, so coming back to this. So what happens is that you now have tight integrations between the ERP and these systems. So for problem number 1, when you build an integration between Shopify and your ERP, the most you can integrate with and the most data you can push is what's available in the ERP that is also available in Shopify, right? So you can only push whatever is common between the two. Okay. But a downstream system to the ERP may need additional data that Shopify has. But there is no place in the ERP. So what do? We start customizing the ERP so we can actually push all this data in.
Okay.
So we create this mess. Now, when you do an upgrade, you are upgrading every single connection that's connected to the ERP.
And that's what makes it fragile, you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense to me, because similar to your point earlier about how EDI is, I forget the phrase you used, but it's more rigid. It's very like opinionated about how the data needs to look. When you go from between system of record systems, they're also very opinionated. They're very rigid. And like you said, you have to do a lot of work to customize them, to create places to store additional information. Whereas if you look at it just as more of a data warehouse kind of a concept, then it's more of a softer place for the data to land. It's not as rigid as a transactional system. Is that a good way of describing as well?
That's the perfect way to describe it. Yes.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Okay. So now I'm with you. So when you're saying like the system, when you're integrating between 2 transactional systems and the integrations are fragile, it's because records are failing because things don't validate correctly. Is that
things don't validate? Because again, let's say if you take Shopify and Acumatica, which is what which is where you and I met. Acumatica was built with its own data structure without any regards for Shopify or BigCommerce or Adobe or any of those. Same thing with those systems. The problem is that everybody, especially in today's world, everybody wants to be a system of truth, right? ERP wants to be a system of truth for AI. Shopify wants to be a system of truth, and so on. So which means that there isn't a one-to-one match between the 2 data, the data structures between the 2 systems. So you are now doing all sorts of patchworks to basically, just make them talk to each other.
So let me see if I can come up with a simple example for my simple brain. The product description. So maybe Shopify allows me to have 6,000 characters in my product description. My ERP only allows me to have 4,000 characters. And so now I try to push a 5,000 character record into the ERP and it's going to throw an error. Is that a good example?
Yeah, that's a good example. Okay. It's the least common denominator. The second option is, let's say you have a website that's multilingual, and you now need to store an English description, a Spanish description, a French description. Where do you put that in the ERP? Not an easy place to put it. So we start creating additional attributes, additional things, and just make it more complex for data that technically does not need to sit in the ERP, right? So over the years, we all started believing that ERP is a system of truth, and it is for financial data, for relevant information. But we started believing, of course, I'm guilty of that, like everybody else, and that's what I pushed for over a decade. We start pushing everything into the ERP because that's the closest system that you can dump everything into.
Yep. Right? Okay. So I'm totally with you. With a business intelligence tool, thinking like this matches very much when I learned about the business intelligence world. I was used to just reporting directly off of my transactional ERP data. And then when I learned the value of bringing all the data into one place, whether you call it a data warehouse, which is a more traditional term for like rigid boxy data, or you call it a data lake, which could also include images and videos and other types of files. It's the same idea that you're collecting everything in one place, then you report off of that. It's hard to, I still don't know how to explain why, but it does work a lot better than just trying to report off of your individual data sources. I've lived that. So that makes sense to me. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
So, and I love the fact that you brought up the business intelligence and so on. So now let me talk about why this is absolutely essential in today's world. Let's assume that now we built this governed data, and I still haven't answered what I've been doing. So I'm still talking the theory, and then I'll explain how.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting, no problem. No problem.
Yeah, we'll get there. Right. So once you have governed data, now you are on governed commerce, right? Your commerce systems are on governed data set. So now you can start thinking about activating commerce or activated commerce, right? So what I'm saying is that now you can start activating applications, whether it is a PIM, like the product information management, a WMS, a point of sale, an order management system, all these, or inventory management system, all these things, and the ERP. These are all now applications that you are activating on this governed data source. Now they are all seamlessly working on the same version of truth and working together. Once you have activated commerce, then you can start optimized commerce, right? So now your commerce systems are all activated, working together as one single unit. Now you can talk about optimization, right? Whether it is personalization, intelligence, the systems actually, your dashboards being truthful, the C-level executives can actually trust the dashboards that are giving the data because it's working against the same governed data source, right? Otherwise,
this is 4. You mentioned 5 levels in the beginning. So optimized commerce is now level 4.
Actually, I said 6. I started with fragmented.
Oh, that was -1. Okay, all right.
That is -1, okay. Exactly.
Okay.
And integrated or unified is level 0. That's table stakes. If you're not doing that, then right. Then it's governed commerce. Then it's activated commerce. Then it's optimized commerce.
Okay. All right. Now I'm with you. So we're on level 3 now.
Yep.
Level number 3, but level 4.
4. Yeah.
All right. Gotcha.
Right. And then now you can talk about what everybody, you open any article nowadays, people are talking about, autonomous commerce, right? So that's your AI agents doing your buying, selling, and all these things. And that's autonomous commerce or agentic commerce. That's the holy grail as of now, as of today, based on what we know, right? And the problem is that everybody is trying to jump into autonomous commerce right from integrated commerce.
Yeah.
And imagine this, right? If you just mentioned that, in a Power BI situation or in a dashboard, and working with multiple systems is challenging, and getting all the data together makes life easy, and you're actually looking at a centralized source and do things well. Now your agents have the same problem that your BI has, which is your agents need governed data that they can trust, right? Otherwise, AI is simply going to amplify every single mistake that humans make, and at scale, right? So the foundational element for what everybody is talking about, which is agentic commerce and AI, is governed data. Without governed data, there is no agentic commerce. And yeah, you can do it, but it's just going to cause a lot of challenging situations and disasters.
I'm totally with you on that. And if we step back from commerce for a moment and just talk more technology in general, I've been thinking along exactly the same lines with all this talk about hooking up agents to your data. At first, I thought MCP servers were the answer, where you can have the ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, interact directly with the system. But I've already discovered that same pain point, and it's not a new pain point. It's the same classic just data pain point, where when you're interacting directly with the transactional system, there are challenges with that. And the idea of collecting all the data in one place and having the agent sit on top of that, especially from a reporting standpoint, to me makes a lot more sense. Some people will call that the semantic model. It's still the same idea of bringing everything into a data warehouse / data lake and having the AI sit on top of that, instead of having it go to the transactional databases And I think part of the reason, at least from a technical standpoint, in my opinion, is that transactional systems like an ERP, an e-commerce, a CRM, whatever, they're designed for getting data in. And the way you set up your database when you do that is you set it up in a normalized structure. And it's very efficient at getting data in. But the same thing that makes it strong at getting data in handicaps it when you try to get data out. And so when you design more of a data warehouse / data lake, you're still pulling the data in, but the way you structure it is designed for getting data out. Does that resonate with you at all on a commerce level?
Absolutely, Tim. I think we are both going to be dating ourselves here if we use the word master data management, MDM, right? So that was very popular at one point. Large enterprises were focusing on it, but eventually we are coming back to that because without a true MDM and a governed data, governed data store, all these other things that we are thinking about, we can build it, but then we are just building more and more complicated systems, more autonomous systems, and on fragmented, broken layers, and causing bigger problems for the organization. Yeah?
And if when you talk about just like number of integration points, I'm trying to picture this in my head. So let's say, let me see if this it's hard to paint. Like I'm going to try to paint it with my hands. All right. So let's say I have 3 different places that people can order from. And I think this is part of the big pain that you focus on. I might have a Shopify website for a certain set of customers. Then I've seen companies do this. They might fire up another site because it's more B2B friendly or B2C friendly or vice versa. So maybe I have Shopify here, I have BigCommerce here, and then maybe I have Amazon. I'm taking orders from Amazon. All right. Absolutely. So I could either go directly from those individual ones into the ERP, but we talked about the rigidness challenges there, or I could bring them all into more of a soft landing place, data warehouse / data lake. And then I have another integration point to the ERP. Does it really reduce the number of integration points? I guess on the fly here, it doesn't seem like it does. It's just making the integrations less complicated. Is that?
So it doesn't change the number of integration points, but it simplifies those integrations significantly, right? So imagine these integrations having to do the translations between 2 systems that are not built with each other in mind, versus I'm having this centralized data store that is a superset of all the data coming from everywhere. So I'm just dumping the data in there. So the integrations are simpler, and your upgrades and maintenance becomes a lot more simpler because you now don't have to worry about, let's say if I'm upgrading this system, I don't have to worry about upgrading all my integrations to it because I just upgrade this and my data is not changing.
Love that. Okay. So your integration point, when you bring it into your centralized data store, is going to speak the language of the data source. So if it's coming from Shopify, they're just going to like bring the data in, as Shopify likes to call it. And that's why it's more resilient when you then go upgrade Shopify, for example.
That is right. That's correct. Okay. So technically, you don't upgrade Shopify, but an Acumatica maybe, yes.
Yeah. Right? Okay. So, no, I'm with you. I like that. That makes sense to me. And I think that also touches on something that is just a fundamental, like, it's a physical world problem. And a lot of people don't think about this. You just think about the cloud. You just think about everything happening magically. But when you're moving data from one place to another, the simpler you make that movement, the better. It's going to be faster. Absolutely. You just suck it in. But yeah, like you're saying, the more you introduce complexity in the middle of that pipeline, it's no different than moving water or oil or anything else in the physical world. Data still has to move across, something. And the more complex you make that, the longer it takes to move. Whereas when you just migrate it as is into a central place, then you schedule things maybe on an hourly basis, nightly basis to do more of the thinking on top of that data. Is that correct?
Tim, I love the example that you gave of moving water or oil or whatever it is. And so think about it this way, right? If we are trying to draw a diagram of your systems on, like, let's say a Visio or some graphical tool, and you know how you run into challenges where there are so many lines and you're now trying to figure out how to draw it properly with those lines not crossing each other, right? You put those 5 characters and so on.
Yeah.
So imagine today when we are talking about all these systems talking to each other, you're creating a mesh, right? Not a mess, It is a mess, but it's a mesh, right? So you have all these lines going across from one system to another system. It's not just Shopify is just talking to the ERP. Shopify is also talking to the same shipping system that you're talking to the same payment system, to the same, to the same product information management system, and so on.
So actually, there are more integration points. I haven't thought about that, because if I have 3 e-commerce websites, all 3 have to go talk to the PIM in addition to talking to the EMP. So we do have sort of an exponentially increasing number of integrations. Okay. Yeah.
Compare that to what we are talking about, which is a hub and spoke model. You have your data store sitting at the center, and all systems just one line to that system, and that's it.
Yes. Okay, I'm with you. Yeah, so, and in BI world, we would call that a star schema. I still don't like that. I like wagon wheel better. To me, structurally, when I look at the tables, it looks more of a wagon wheel. There's a center with spokes off of it, but for some reason, star schema has been the name. But yes, that model works super well for pulling data together. And what's funny is it hasn't changed for decades. It's just we're using new words to talk about it with AI now, but it's the same problem that we solved decades ago, right?
Believe me, we are all in tech, and we basically regurgitate the same thing every few years, giving it a different name. Nothing changes. The fundamentals are the same always.
Isn't it a classic generational thing? Because like the people right out of college have these new names to hold on to. They think it's the most amazing thing, and the old people don't know what they're talking about related to technology. But really, they just have different words to describe the same thing. And it's a generational thing, right? It's like, when the teenagers can't communicate with their parents, a lot of it's just words that you're using. You're talking about the same thing. You're just using different words.
Believe me, I thought, I've learned English, properly when I moved to the US, and now I have 2 kids that are Gen Zs and so on, and I'm learning a whole different language.
It's so true. It's so true. So same in the professional world. We just have new names for a lot of the same challenges. AI is a new technology. I'm not saying it's not, but a lot of the pain points that you run into when you try to implement AI, those kind of things, a lot of them have been solved, and this is a perfect example of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So coming back to your original question, what have we been doing? So we now built this platform called OmnifiCX. It is not related to Kinsey. Yes, I'm also the co-founder for this, and along with my business partner Vipul. And what we have done here is basically try to tackle this problem in a different way based on what we've been living with the last decade and so on. So we built this platform that we called OmnifiCX. It stands for Omnifying the Commerce Experience, right? So I'm bringing everything together. So which has an integrated hub, and we build this as a connect once, connect all platform, where you just connect every system once to this platform and forget about it. That's it, right? And then the platform ensures that whichever downstream system is interested in the data that is updated by the upstream system gets those notifications. So now, naturally, the moment you integrate, so you were still integrating before with the point-to-point connections. Now, when you integrate systems with OmnifiCX, you are already at level 1, which is governed commerce, because the data is already governed in the system.
Okay. Right? With you.
And of course, on the same application, we are now adding apps. You can hook in your own order management system, your own PIM, your own WMS, and so on, or you can basically just sign up an app on the platform and get order management and PIM and things like those. And finally, the world is now talking about agentic protocols, agentic commerce, and so on. And agents need 2 things, right? So they need access to governed, clean data, which we already talked about. And more importantly, they need context of that data, which means it is not just random data that's in a data warehouse, but something should tell it that, okay, this data represents a customer, this data represents an order, this data represents, inventory or pricing and so on. And we basically give that data that context as we store in the system. So the moment you use OmnifiCX to do your integrations, which is what you've been doing all along, you're not only solving your integration problem and making it simpler, you're also getting ready for agentic commerce in the future naturally. So that's what the platform is about. And we've launched the platform. We spent a year and a half building it. We've launched it early this year in January. That's when I was giving you the demo at the Acumatica conference. And we have not really done any marketing because we really wanted to stress test the system, we've been working with some of our customers. We now have 16 customers on board onto the platform and another 150 in the pipeline. But things are things are definitely looking well, and and everybody that has been using it is now understands what I've been trying to explain theoretically all this time.
I want to make sure I heard you right. You said you spent 8.5 years building it?
No, 1.5.
1.5. Okay. 8.5 sounded like a really big.
Yeah, if any system that takes that long to see the light of the day shouldn't be coming out.
Or it's just built by someone who doesn't have business experience, and you are not
True.
that person. So yeah.
Also, why it should not come out.
So tell me more. You mentioned the phrase master data management. You mentioned that to me at Summit as well.
Right.
To me, the key thing that I think you explained to me, if I heard it right, is that you're talking about not just one-way data, but you're talking about two-way data. So when I think about things from a business intelligence standpoint, it's just a one-way flow. It's for reporting purposes only. Right. But you were talking about actually more of a two-way flow. Is that correct? And what you mean by master data management?
That is correct. So basically, every organization, let's say if you're selling shoes, you have a set of data that is specific to shoes. If you're selling, rocket engines, that's different. So the idea is that your data has a certain set of characteristics. You're capturing all of that and creating your master records, right? So that's technically your master data, which means that as the systems produce different pieces of this data, they're writing to it and building this comprehensive record of a product, of a customer, and so on. And
so does that mean that I don't need to pick the source system to be the source of truth? I can pick OmnifiCX to be the source of truth, and I could go into, let's say I'm selling shoes and I need to update the product image. I don't need to log into the ERP. I don't need to log into my 3 different e-commerce websites. I can actually change the data in OmnifiCX, and it's going to write it back to all the individual source systems.
That is correct. So when you activate the PIM module on OmnifiCX, the product information management module, you can edit the product data, which will then write back to the ERP, write back to the e-commerce, write back to Amazon, all of it.
So it's not just a source of truth, it's also a single interface for updating data.
If you prefer to do it that way, yes. Because, and I don't want to say, yes, in theory, it's very simple and it feels like, that's the right thing to do. But in an organization, typically you've been, living in the ERP space for a while and you've seen implementations. You don't want to change workflows quickly, right? I mean, the biggest, the most challenging thing with an ERP implementation or any system implementation is changing the behavior of the people that are used to using systems. Sure. So if somebody is used to, update, working within the ERP, they can continue to work in the ERP. The ERP will push the data into the same data store. If somebody that's, more modern and new kid on the block comes in and says, well, I don't like to use the ERP. I'd like to use a more modern interface. I want to write directly in OmnifiCX. Sure, you can do that. But the idea is that no matter what system you use and where how you update the data, it all comes into one place and builds your master data.
So either way, the end result would be the same. If I want to continue to maintain the data in the ERP, the data would write into the central OmnifiCX store, and then it would also write out to the individual websites, the CRM, whatever system needs it.
That's correct.
So it's sort of a data broker. It's moving data from one place to another without me having to go update multiple systems. That's at a simple level, right?
Maybe, yeah, you're right. But an iPaaS platform is a data broker, right? Which is simply taking data and sending it from point A to point B. But we are not just sending it from point A to point B. We are basically governing the data and ensuring that it is also stored. That's the biggest difference between traditional iPaaS platforms and what we're doing.
Good point. Yeah, an iPaaS is just kind of moving it, but it's not actually storing it. Yeah, good point.
Right.
Talk to me more about the PIM. I actually don't know a lot about the PIM. So PIM, product information management. Is this a way for me to take let's stick with the shoes example. I'm selling 200 different shoes on my website, and is a PIM some type of third-party service that I go out to enrich the data with other attributes? Like maybe there's a database of shoes and it knows how much the shoe weighs, or I don't know what information I want to know. Is that what a PIM is?
potentially, so a PIM is nothing but a data store where you're storing your product catalog information, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, for example, you can store product information in an ERP. Let's again talk about Acumatica that we both work with, and you can store, you can create attributes in for a stock item in Acumatica. You can store the size, color, width, all of those for a shoe in Acumatica as attributes. And you can also upload images to Acumatica. But if you really ask me, is Acumatica the right place to store all of your images? Probably not, right? So because again, it stores it. So the idea is with a PIM is purely built for product enrichment. And yes, there are PIMs where you have some AI capabilities now added to them. So where you can basically enter the SKU, give the manufacturer and so on. It will scour the internet, get all the details, and generate unique descriptions for you. It can generate images for you. So everything around enriching the product data and storing it efficiently is what a PIM does.
Okay. So it really is specific to you then. It's not so much a third-party service focused. It's more about you and collecting the data in one place about your products. Now, what about the third-party stuff? So like, I know, go ahead.
Sorry, I do want to add one thing. But it can also connect to third-party systems. Let's say you're an automotive supplier, automotive parts supplier.
Great example.
And yeah, your make, model, year, that database is available publicly. So the PIM can subscribe to that service to load that data in.
Got it.
So that's also a possibility. Yes.
And what would you call that when you start involving the third party? You'd still call it the PIM, but you just have another data connection to another source. Okay.
Yeah, PIM is a class, just like an ERP. PIM is a class of software tools that are focused on enriching product catalog data.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense to me. And yeah, that's really interesting because I know a lot of, especially on the distribution side of things. You mentioned like an automotive part supplier. Like there are databases of all the stuff that you would wind up selling, and there's no reason for you to do the work of taking the pictures of all the products and measuring the specs and the weight. All that data is available. And then there's also like industry groups. I know that the companies will subscribe to a centralized buying group for getting their supplies, so they get better discounts and things like that. And those industry groups a lot of times will maintain a record of that data. So that's all stuff. There's a lot of things you can subscribe to. Yeah,
that's right. Medical supplies is another one where a lot of things are standardized. Food is another one. Yeah, so lots of different things.
And then so the key is that you bring that into your centralized data store so that you can provide that information on your e-commerce sites as well. Make it easier for people to find the products that you sell, right?
Correct. A classic example of where a PIM would be useful is, let's say I'll take the same shoes example, which is simple, which doesn't have anything integrated with anything else. But if I'm selling on e-commerce, I'll have a description. If I'm selling that same shoe on Amazon, I will have bullet points, right? Amazon expects you to give you bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So I need to break down my description to those bullet points. eBay expects in a different format, right? So the idea is that you can basically bring all this in, and you can say, okay, I'm creating different flavors of the data depending on, this is for eBay, this is for Amazon, this is for the website, lots of different things.
So as soon as you said bullet points, and I also think we're at the time where we can do this. All right, I think we can geek out about AI now.
Yes.
So, all right. So yeah, I don't know. I like spending a lot of time on just the traditional challenges, because in my opinion, that's the challenges most companies are facing. It's just give me one version of the truth. Give me the ability to integrate easily, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, let's turn the corner and geek out about the future and AI and stuff. So the first thing so the reason why I bring it up in the context of bullet points is I found that AI loves bullet points. And so people use the word markdown. Markdown is like a real simple format where you open a text document and you put, I think it's an asterisk or a dash that tells you the bullet point. And AI loves that. It can understand like bullet point with sub bullet points. It's very understandable for the AI. So now we're crossing into the territory of like actually having AI find your stuff. And talk to me about what you're seeing with AI agents. Like, are you actually seeing that in the real world? Are people buying, like letting AI buy stuff for them already, or is that more futuristic?
So it's a very interesting topic, and there is a lot that is going on. So when we talk about AI, I will talk about two things, right? So there are two protocols that have been established, right? And I'll start with that. Like there is ACP, which stands for Agentic Commerce Protocol, which focuses on AI-powered checkout within conversational assistants, right? Which means you can use your chat GPT, you can use your, whatever your conversational assistant that you're using, you can do an AI-powered checkout. That's what ACP or Agentic Commerce Protocol defines. Then there's another one called UCP, which is Universal Commerce Protocol, which standardizes the entire AI-driven shopping journey, right? From discovery of the product to the purchase and post-purchase as well, right? Now, ACP is what was originally launched by OpenAI and Stripe. So OpenAI and Stripe came together and launched this agentic commerce protocol. And it requires merchants to submit catalogs to these systems. Right? Think about like back in the day when we used to submit our product catalog to Google so we can get listed in Google Shopping feed. So now you're submitting your catalog in an ACP format to OpenAI and Stripe, so you can integrate with Stripe for payments. Right? It is platform agnostic, but it is centralized in terms of payment processing. Kind of you're stuck with Stripe, right? And UCP, on the other hand, is merchants. Every merchant is hosting their own. It's literally like a Google feed, like back in the day. They're hosting a JSON-based protocol artifact at /UCP URL on their domain. What it does is it basically describes your products. It describes everything. So any AI agent can discover it, and any AI agent can then, similar to your robots.txt or sitemap.xml back in the SEO days. So this allows an AI agent to discover it and then work with it, right? So again, if I simplify it, ACP is primarily used for ChatGPT instant checkout. UCP is supported by Google AI Mode, Gemini app, Shopify merchants, and a lot of major retailers like Walmart, Target, and so on, right? Now, all this is great. And OpenAI initially said, we're going to launch this. They launched it with a lot of fanfare, and then they rolled it back. And because what they realized is that people are not trusting them with their wallets, trusting AI with their wallets, right? I believe I'm fairly tech savvy, and I like tech, but I still don't trust AI with my credit card, not yet.
Yeah,
I need more guardrails.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. But you're setting companies up for that future world, and I am going to put a link to a guy that I've been following, Nate B. Jones. You can follow him on YouTube. He's got a really good episode specifically talking about marketing to AI agents and where he thinks things are going. He's very like leading edge, super techie, and so he himself talks about his own buying experience. So he bought a new sound system for his house, and he let the AI buy it. And what he put in is he put in the dimensions of the room, the sound quality he was looking for. I don't know. He describes what he's looking for, and he let the AI go buy it for him. But I think he's unusual. I don't think we see a lot of people doing it yet. No. But the world does seem to be moving in that direction, right?
Correct. You still do a lot of discovery, right? So in other words, you are going in and saying, I'm here at the Rockies and I'm going for a run. What's the best shoe that I can use for this weather, this thing, and so on. So it can give you that discovery, right? And find the closest merchants. So
and that's with the UCP part of what you're talking about, right? That's how to help AI discover your products. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Correct. So if you ask me what's happening and where businesses are, where the real wins are right now, especially for mid-market businesses, is AI-enhanced search, right? And automated exception handling in ERP workflows. Flagging mismatched POs, which is what you do with trials, right? Catching API anomalies, surfacing cash flow risks and things like those. Now, AI assisted content at scale, right? Improving your product catalog and all those things. Those are all where AI is still being used very actively. Where you should be skeptical, this is my opinion, where you should be skeptical is if a vendor is coming in and saying, oh, we are using fully autonomous mode in a commerce context. Not there yet, right? I think agents that can execute multi-step cross-system workflows reliably, not there yet, right? They're proof of concepts. They're not production grade at this point. So I would still say, yes, embrace AI because it's coming whether you like it or not. Get ready for all these things. Use this time to prep your data, get your governed data, get your leverage it for search, leverage it for exception handling and things like those. But then wait till the agents really get more mature before you get into fully autonomous mode. But it's coming, right? I mean, it's not too far.
It seems to be coming. Yeah. I personally hope it never gets there. Because then I feel like we start, as money always like drives it, right? Money is where the power is. And as soon as the AI starts controlling the flow of money, I feel like it flips from AI working for us to us working for AI. But yeah, people say it's coming. I personally hope that, I don't know, there's some apocalyptic thing that stops that from happening. But yeah, we'll see. But for sure.
Or you can believe, or you can believe what Elon is saying, which means that working for money is no longer relevant in the future world because your AIs and robots do everything, and you just survive.
Yeah, I don't know. That stuff makes my head hurt. I prefer to stay.
I know.
Like,
yes.
look at the stuff I can see outside my window in the real world. I'll just focus on that, and whatever's coming is coming. I can't control it anyways.
That's true, and it's scary to think that we all become irrelevant very quickly.
Yeah, whatever. I'll just focus on the next step. But for sure, where we are already, I think we're at this point already. This is not futuristic. Where, in a sense, AI for the most part, very rapidly. You can see the data on this. I don't know if you have any objective data sources on this, but I think it's pretty clear that this has arrived where AI is just the new Google search. Like, instead of Googling something, you just AI, and it kind of depends on what it is. I find myself, I'll just do a traditional Google search if I'm just looking for the company's website, for example. But if I'm just looking for more of a general response to a question, I'll just use ChatGPT for that. And that's where the UCP protocol that you talked about is important, because you want your company to be discovered when someone's just doing a modern Google search, right?
That's right. And Tim, by the way, this is there is objective data for it, right? And now they're saying that 70+% of all product searches happen in AI.
Wow.
Yes, and you know this fact from a fact when you know that Google PPC ad spend is not what it was before, and even if you are doing PPC searches, you get a lot of robotic clicks and not real people clicking on it and so on. You're not getting as much conversions anymore. So that
interesting
is already gone, and which is why even if you go into Google and do a search right now, you get the AI thing first now.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so that's arrived. Do you know off the top of your head a good, or you could send it to me afterwards, a good objective, like?
Yeah, I'll send
just
you the
something
study.
that will show me the line chart over time, a percentage of AI search versus Google search. I'd love to have a good source on that.
Yes, I'll send it over.
Yeah, I'll drop that in the related links on the episode page at erpseal.com/episode 16. And while I'm in here, I just noticed we actually got a couple comments a while ago.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Someone says that's a lot of data, and someone says, "What's up? What's up? What's up?" I don't know who that is, but I will highlight those comments. It's kind of fun when you do something live, you get some comments. But that's really interesting. So, Tom, I'm still really interested in this whole PIM thing. So, like, maybe PIM's not the right concept, but just the concept of taking your products and enriching, like, knowing more about your products. But let's shift gears. Are you okay on time, by the way? I know we're at the top of the hour. Do you have another 10 or 15?
Yeah.
You're good?
Yes.
What about customers? So, to me, a big part of bringing data together into a platform and building a product like you've done with OmnifiCX is, it's not just the automations, it's not just the better structure for the data and the technical stuff we've already talked about. It's also that now you can actually serve your customers with data that they don't have. And when you specifically get to the customers, that stuff starts to get really interesting. You can start to do things like, hey, I now know who your 500 customers are, but I also know who all the companies are in the US and what their what is it, the NAICS code is, their different industries, how big they are, where their locations are. like if you bring in data sets like that and allow your customers to subscribe to that, to basically help them know what their true market size is and how to grow their market, is that a direction you see yourself going in at some point?
Those are all integrations that can be built. I mean, that's the app layer that we are giving, right? So once you have the data, we if somebody wants to come in and build an app to provide that as a service to customers to just do a lookup, they can, right? Because the platform is a platform, and you can just keep building apps on it against the data. So yes,
So it sounds like your approach right now would be, hey, I'm giving you the way for you to connect to a data source. Have you ever, this is something I've always wondered, and you've probably explored it more than I have, but I've always wondered if there's a way for you as the software company to subscribe to the data set and then license it out to your customers. The legal side and the economic side is where it gets tricky, but do you know anything about how you might be able to do that?
I was just about to say that, it's the legal and economic side. Yes, if you form a partnership with those database providers, it's no different than, let's say I want to start providing, which we are already doing. Like, for example, we partnered with Fortis and Stripe for payments, with Avalara for tax on this platform and so on. So the idea is that, we've partnered and we are now giving that ability to everybody. That's no different than Acumatica or other ERPs doing the same thing, right? So once you have the data, you can basically, you're just providing more and more convenience features by, connecting it to all the systems.
Yeah, you're saving me from having to add the integration myself, and you're just making it easier to do that. No, that gets really interesting. I love stuff like that. Yes, to me, the data is very valuable when you bring enough of it together, enough clean data, and that's why all these layers we've talked about are super, super important. And I think people are learning. This is the same lesson. One of those same lesson examples that people are learning all over again in the age of AI, that big data is not valuable. The big clean data is valuable, and people are experiencing that on an AI level right now. Right?
Exactly.
Well, that's really cool. Talk to me about any other good, just another kind of topic here, just other AI use cases that you're finding in e-commerce specifically, or commerce in general. Just forget the technical side, but just where should people be thinking about using AI in that world?
I think I typically would, the first thing that if somebody is not using AI agent on their website for product discovery, in other words, especially if you're, let's say, somebody that is selling a lot of, parts, like whether it is parts for HVAC or parts for industrial supplies and so on, people don't know what product, what specific product they want, right? So you need the discoverability. Or if I'm basically selling, automotive parts, what part fits and so on, right? So these are all things that, you typically have search agents that everybody is focusing on. I want a really good search on my website and so on. But what if you have an AI agent that can basically start guiding your customers towards a product, right? You can upload a picture and it can detect and it can tell you things and so on. And we're doing some of this already with some of the customers, where you can basically build that search thing, right? So it goes against your catalog. It's guiding the customer, saying, hey, what do you want? Oh, I'm working with a Ford Bronco, and I'm working on this transmission thing issue and so on. It's guiding you to a particular thing, not a search, but a product guide. That's something that you should definitely be thinking about, because this technology is now very, very prevalent, and it is something that actually works. Not, it's not pie in the sky thing. So you can actually get to it. You can
on that. I think this is let me see if I understood it right. When we were talking about UCP earlier, we're talking about making information available to these big LLMs, a ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. Now, are you talking about something separate, where you're talking about having an AI assistant on the company's website itself, something like that?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. An AI enhanced search on your website, right? It's a product guide. The second thing that you can definitely want to use AI is for giving your.
Wait, before you give me the second thing, I want to ask you a little more on the first one. Do you really think that's I'm still not buying that one myself yet, where it's I really can connect. I'm just going to go with the big three. I think it's really big three. It's ChatGPT from OpenAI, Claude from Anthropic, Gemini from Google. To me, those are the big three. Do you really think people are I mean, just use your future brain. Like in a few years, you really think they're going to be going to individual websites and looking for AI assistants that are going to behave differently on each website, or are they just going to use one of the big three to find it?
No, if your customer is coming in from one of those search engines and so on, and they have access to all of your catalog data and pull up information and so on, they can. But if you are basically serving a B2B customer, and they are not going out to ChatGPT to do the purchasing and so on, they're in your portal, they're looking for what part works best for you and so on. So things like those. There are specific use cases that you want to build on, right?
Good point.
So yeah, for a shoe that may not make sense. But if I'm basically supplying parts to industrial supply, right? One of the common customers, let's say it's all parts or something like that, right? They sell parts across the board. So for them, it's a lot of times customers don't know what they want, and they just know that, okay, the part looks like this. This is what got damaged. I just need a replacement part. Right?
They just take a picture of it and send it to your AI assistant on your website.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Right?
I'm curious. All right, I'll still let you go to the second use case, but I'm really curious on this, like from many levels. But do you also see, like, especially for the picture example, I'm still not sold about the AI assistant on the website. I'm almost wondering if these needs to be native mobile apps that companies launch, that their AI assistants are there on the phone, or what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Potentially, I think that so people are, in the B2B world, people still go to the website to purchase. They and they can use a mobile app, but I would not look at it as a mobile app. I would probably do it more as a as a PWA that both a web page, and you can also install it as an app on your phone and so on.
Yeah, like a super lightweight app that's not really an app, it's just another front end to it. Yeah, and it's mainly so I can use the camera on my phone is the main reason why I think. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Right. All right, sorry. Then your second AI use case. I'll let you go there.
my second AI use case that I can think of is in terms of reducing your customer service calls. This is a real problem, right? Which means that where is my order? What's happening with it? I would like to do a return and things like that. I think that is a real use case that is a lot of companies that are using it, instead of having somebody by the phone answering those questions, or having a call center or a ticketing system and so on. A lot of that can be AI driven. All it takes is a simple AI agent that is basically a conversational agent that is talking to your ERP APIs or your shipping system APIs and getting the information back to the customer in real time, right? So these I mean, it basically saves a lot of your headcount and customer service costs and so on. And you can take it all the way to handling returns and things like those, right? And you can also do exception handling in ERP workflows, like the things that you guys are doing with Trailed. That's another big thing, right?
Where's an example of that specifically in ERP? I mean, sorry, in e-commerce. So like, I'll tell you, Trailed World. Yeah, when you say exception handling, I like to think of it. This is how we do it at Trailed. It's like you break a transaction down into red, yellow, or green. It's either green, I don't need to look at it. Yellow, maybe. Red, I absolutely need to look at it. Give me an example of a transaction in the e-commerce world that
in the B2B world, when you're operating on POs and so on, making sure that you're looking at a blanket order and somebody is actually coming in, placing POs against those, making sure that you're matching against that. Your pricing algorithms and so on are set up, things like those. Okay. Right.
So especially in a B2B world. Yeah. Okay.
In the B2B world. Yes. And that's why, with mismatched POs and so on. Right. And of course, the most common thing, I probably should have made this as the first one, is, you're developing your content, right? AI is very good now at developing content. So, AI assisted content at scale. You will not believe how many merchants that are still out there that don't have a really good product catalog with good descriptions, good images, good attributes and so on. And that if you're one of those merchants that don't have it, use AI to first focus on that, because back in the day you had to pay somebody to do all these things. Now you can actually leverage AI to build these at scale.
Sure. Right. Oh, great point. And that reminds me, on the UCP protocol that you mentioned, do you have any thoughts? You're probably not, I don't know, you might not be doing anything with this at this point, but do you have any thoughts of, the current internet is very much a world of a bunch of websites, right? It was that way for decades. But then not that long ago, Google actually changed their search algorithm before AI made it sort of irrelevant, but they changed their search algorithm to favor just certain big sites. And that's when Reddit blew up. Like Reddit became very much an authority and started showing up in searches. Do you think there might be something similar that goes on in the commerce world where, and you might be positioned very well with OmnifiCX to deliver this, where now the AI doesn't have to go crawl the whole internet and all the websites and find all the different products. They could just go to a source like OmnifiCX. Your customer could opt in to make their data available to it. Do you think there might be a world like that at some point?
We are doing that already. So one of the things that OmnifiCX offers is now that you have your governed product data in OmnifiCX, you can basically generate your UCP, the file that the JSON file that UCP needs right out of OmnifiCX. For us, it's just another connection that you're basically pushing out. Anytime your product data changes, your availability changes, you can push in, right? Again, it's very important to make sure that when you're providing this data to the agents, that you're also taking into account the right pricing, the right availability, and so on. You don't want to push a product that is no longer available for you. It's not just dump your catalog there, right? So you can
it's not a manual effort. It's like an API that needs to stay updated on its own, right? Yeah.
That's it. That's right.
Yeah, but then that's still the case of you're going to publish it on your website. You're not at the point where OmnifiCX is actually becoming a source for agents to look at for product information. Not yet.
So yeah, the protocol, the way it works is that it expects that file to be present at the /UCP URL on your website, right? Which basically means that.
I'm just wondering if we have a world that, it might be 5 years away or something, where you have something similar where Google started looking at just several sites like Reddit, and Reddit became an authority, where you have a similar thing that might happen where certain sites become more heavily weighted, right? And then it's even more important that you make sure you're on one of those sites. And
that is correct. That's correct. Like think of it like your your backlink sites that were all the rage at one point, and then Google killed it with one algorithm change.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, fascinating time.
There are a lot of customers that are already doing what we call as AEO, right? AI engine optimization, like search engine optimization. You are doing certain things to basically get referenced in AI engines, making sure that when somebody is asking a question that you get quoted and so on. So that's very important now. So more than search engines. In fact, yesterday I was reviewing it with our marketing team that 16 of our leads that we received last month came from AI engines, inbound leads. Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with the UCP geeky protocol. No. That's just about like writing more stuff on your site. Like it has to do with the words themselves, right?
Yeah. Again, just like we were talking about, clean data, writing good stuff, not just a whole bunch of garbage, and making sure that what you're writing is an authoritative source, not just that's something that you're asking AI to generate and then dumping on your website. Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
Good analogy. Clean data versus just bunch of data. Great analogy. Love it. Let's see. Did I have one? I had one other one that was tickling me. You talked about use cases. I might have had another one, but that's okay. Any other thoughts before we wrap it up here that you have on your mind?
Nothing at this time. I mean, this was great. This is your 176th episode. I was coming in a little nervous, and I just realized that this is us having a conversation, just sitting at having coffee. So
that's all it is. Yeah, that's my style. I don't know. It's just my style. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just what I like to do. I find that if I try to script it, it just doesn't feel right. I enjoy the things that come out naturally when you chat about stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the other thing, if I come in prepared, then I need to figure out, did I say everything I wanted to say or did I miss something? Now this is easy.
Yep. I think it's easier. And I just, I like, what just the tangents we get to go on. And even I know there's something tickling my brain that when you're talking about the use cases, give me a second. Let me think about this for a second. Payments, invoices, products. Oh, I know what it was. So, we still got another few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
the actual way to achieve this. So, we talk about putting AI in things, right? Everyone's talking about doing that. What's the approach that you're doing with OmnifiCX? Is it like, are you trying to put a gate around it and charge money for it? Or are you just letting people hook up an LLM and have it work on governed data? Like, to me, it's two very different approaches. I see different people taking different paths.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you made an assumption, which I'll clarify. And yes, we do support it. The assumption that you made is that now that we have all this governed data sitting here, are we giving a chatbot interface that allows you to query this governed data to get information that you need, right? And yes, we are providing that. We call it, OmnifiCX. So our chatbot is called Omni. So you can ask, hey, Omni, how many orders did I, what's my best-selling product in the last 15 days? You can ask questions like that, and it'll get you data from across all of your channels that you're selling in. And the idea is that, yes, we provide both for customers that are looking for simple answers. We give you a certain amount of tokens, and you can basically purchase more and use the AI that's available within. Or we are also giving you an MCP layer to access the data that you can basically plug into your own AI as well.
So you didn't pick a path. You're providing both options.
Both.
I like that. I like
because in the mid-market ERP, you have some that are very sophisticated, that are doing a lot with AI, and then there are some that don't want to deal with the tech, but that are more focused on the end use cases. So we support both, right? So for those that are not very technologically savvy and still want to leverage it, we keep it simple. For others that want to use their own AI engine, we just provide the MCP layer for it.
Like that. To me, it'd be interesting to see how it plays out, but it does seem kind of similar to me versus the difference between on-prem hosting or cloud hosting. It's like, yeah, I could wire up my own servers, and I like how there's advantages having the flexibility to do that. That's kind of like bringing your own LLM to the party. Or I just take the thing that's already been done. I use Omni. It's kind of like just taking a cloud service. I like, though, having both options, because to me, that was one thing that really attracted me to Acumatica initially, is knowing that I had the option to deploy it on-prem if I wanted to. I couldn't do that with NetSuite or some of the other cloud providers. And so I like that you are giving people the option to have both paths. Just makes me feel like I have more ownership of my data, and I'm not just selling my soul to some cloud provider that I don't know what's going to happen with it.
Absolutely.
I like that. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and so even like if I were to embed an AI assistant on my website for my customers, could it just be Omni, so I don't have to build it? I just embed the Omni widget on it.
You can, yes.
Yeah, I like that. And then if my customers use it a ton, I'll get charged for those tokens. I should, because that's a cost to you guys. Correct. And then that might be a I could always switch to my own LLM if I want to pay some money. Yeah, that makes sense. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Rahul, thank you. Anything else we missed that you want to mention?
No, I think it's we covered a lot here. I think that was great. Thanks.
I'll put your LinkedIn profile on the related links at erpseal.com/episode 176. Would you like me to put your email on there as well, or just stick with the LinkedIn profile?
Absolutely. Email's good too. It's not secret.
Go ahead. You can say it. I'll put it on the links as well. I'll let you just recite it.
It is R and my last name, Gedupudi @kensium.com.
Perfect. And your last name is right there on the screen for people who need to know how to spell it. Awesome. All right, Rahul. Well, thanks again. Enjoyed the chat, and look forward to having you on again in a future episode.
All right. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Yeah.